Hey guys, it's Allison here, and I'm back with part 2 of my 10 cards from one kit. And this is still the April kit from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm just picking up where I left off. Everything was still out on my desk. And when I was editing the video, I really wanted to try this sort of stained glass technique, but with a dark cardstock behind it. So that's where I'm starting. So I am using my Versamark ink to stamp my butterflies. And I'm stamping 5. I've got the largest, the middle size, and then 3 small ones. And then I'm going to emboss all those in white. And once those are embossed, I get my Distress Oxide inks ready. And I stamp them in actual rainbow order this time onto my mat. I don't end up blending them together though, like I did the last time, so it really wouldn't have mattered, but yeah, I don't know, I just felt like it needed to be in rainbow order. So I am picking up some of the color with my water brush and just painting it into certain areas. I'm not making this messy because I don't want to have to cut out these butterflies. I want them to stay on the paper like this. So I'm just picking up each color and painting different parts of the butterfly on each butterfly in the colors. I'm starting with the yellow. Once I am happy with where I've put the yellow, I'm just going to quickly clean my brush and then move on. I'm making sure that they are mirror images on each butterfly, but each butterfly is very different. And I'm just going to continue this for each color. When I get to the blue, it's not that noticeable because it's basically the same color as the cardstock, but it does sort of give a subtle shading to the butterflies. And once I'm done, I just give my brush a quick clean. I spritz it a little bit to try and intensify those colors and then put it aside to dry. And I get started on my next one. And I wanted to see if I could get a more intense color through the stencil. So I've decided to spray the paper first. I put the stencil down, I've taped it down to my desk, and I just give it a spritz with water and then put some of the ink onto my mat and spritz that as well. And already you can probably tell if you watched the previous video that this color is a lot more intense, so I'm very excited about that. And then I just do the same with the yellow. And I'm getting more blending. It's actually coming out more green because I think my brush is just a little bit dirty. And so I put that one aside to dry and move on to card number 3. And I have this strip of rainbow paper. It's just what was remaining from one of the kits from the previous video. So I decided to use it as my sentiment strip, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do in the background, but I'm just going to work on the sentiment strip for now. So I've stamped my sentiment, and I'm going to add some butterflies. And I tried to see if I could spritz the water on the butterfly to get a more intense yellow, but it wasn't. It was just kind of making a bit of a hot mess. So I just cleaned that off and stamped it normally. So I've got a large and a small yellow butterfly, a pink butterfly, and now I'm adding a green butterfly to this little strip. And like I said, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do with the rest of the card, but I get my card base down and cut my strip to the right length. And then I had an idea that maybe I could use the foil, and I was wondering if it would stick to the Versamark ink. So I give that a try, and it doesn't. So I think, okay, well, what if I emboss it, and while the embossing powder is hot, rub that foil onto it? So that's what I've done. I've embossed it and rub the foil onto it, and it does work, but I clearly need to be a lot quicker at it. So I give it another try. So it does work. So you you would create your embossed image as normal, and I'm using just the white embossing powder that I had sitting out on my desk. And then as soon as you stop the gun, basically, while it's still really hot, put your foil down on it. And I just rubbed it with my bone folder. I would say just be a little bit gentle rubbing it. I did sort of scratch it a little bit. You might be able to see that in the close-up, but it worked quite well, so good technique. Again, big fan of the foil. So there you go, there's the finished card there, and so you can see there's a few areas where I've scratched the silver foil, but I like the effect. I think it's kind of a fun way to get a really simple card. So now my stenciled base is now dry, so I think I'm going to stamp over the butterflies with a darker blue ink just to give it a bit more definition, because it did bleed a little bit, and I'm not sure if that was after it was drying or just a lot of water got under the stencil. What I probably should have done was sprayed the paper first and then put the stencil down on top instead of spraying the paper through the stencil, but I didn't, so oh well. So now I'm going to get my card base ready, and I know I want to cut down my stencil image, so I've picked one of the blue paper from the kit to have in the background, and I'm just getting that cut to size and adhered, and then I can decide exactly how I want to cut my paper down. And I want to use one of my die cuts, but I can't decide if I want the one with the scalloped edge or the stitched rectangle. And I eventually decide on the stitched rectangle, so I'm just going to grab my Big Shot and get that cut out. So it's looking good, but it does need a sentiment. But none of the ones that are in the kit, the stamp set from the kit, are really speaking to me. So I grab my Happy Birthday set, and I decide to add a couple of sentiments from there. And I'm just playing with where I want them placed on my card. And I'm trying to decide what colors of ink to use. I decide to go with the same blue that I used to outline the butterflies for that sort of stacked sentiment. And then the Happy Birthday, I'm going to use the blue ink that came in the kit. And it's looking good. It just needs a little bit of bling. Everything needs bling. So I'm adding some silver Nuevo crystals. And I first fill in the bodies of the butterflies, and then their little antennas have, well, the larger butterflies anyways, have sort of open holes where the ends of the antennas are. So I've put little dots of silver in there. You can see that now on the close-up. And then I just added some more dots of the silver as accents. And the first card base that I started is now dry as well. So I decided to use the scalloped border die on this one. And it's almost the same size as my card base there, but put against a white 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base, it will give a little bit of a white border around, and you'll get that lovely scallop detail. And this also needs a sentiment. So I'm looking through my little paper scraps to see if there's anything that will work that I could stamp on maybe, and this strip of green appeals to me. So I decide to emboss it in white to match the butterflies. And now I am just cutting that little strip to size. And I'm going to notch one end into a flag and then adhere it. And there you go, there's a finished card. Very simple, but I wanted the focus to be on the butterflies. Okay, so moving on. I've done 3 horizontal cards, so it's time to bring in some vertical cards. And I want to sort of focus on the papers now. I've done a lot of sort of artsy techniques, so now it's time to turn my attention to the papers that are in the kit. So I start with this red stripe, and I know I have a butterfly punch that is a similar shape to some of the stamps in the kit. So I take that and I punch out 5 from this rainbow paper, and I'm trying to choose colors that will stand out against that red. And then I'm going to add foam adhesive squares to half the butterfly and then flat adhesive to the other half, so that when they get adhered, they look like they're popping off the page, like they're sort of in flight. And then to finish the card, I will stamp a sentiment onto the card. And I really wasn't sure what color ink I wanted to use. I didn't want black. I didn't want it to be too stark. I thought about the yellow, but it just doesn't show up against the red. So I tested the green, and it's a bit better. It's still pretty darn subtle. But I figure, well, I'll just keep going at it. And I stamped the leaf pattern in that same green. And I think that I can adhere my butterflies sort of onto that leaf as if they are flying off it. And then I just spray it with a bit of water to try and intensify that color. I don't know if it really worked, but I thought I would give it a try. The whole point of the Distress Oxide inks is that they do react with water, so that's what I was trying to do, is get that reaction going. And now it's just a matter of adhering my butterflies. And I have 3 that are in the sort of oranges and yellows, and 2 that have more of the greens and blues. So I'm trying to stagger them on the card, so they're not all the same color together, kind of a thing. And then finishing touch is just some silver drops down the middle of butterflies for an accent. And there you can see the finished card. So yeah, the sentiment is clearer in real life than it is on the screen, put it that way. Okay, so last card, and I still am focusing on the papers rather than any of the sort of artsy techniques. And I have a bit of a collection of scraps on the side of my desk now. So that is, I basically cut off the bits where I punched out the butterfly, and that's the remainder. So I thought that would be a good place to start. And then I grabbed a 2-inch strip of the pink paper from the kit, and I'm just going to layer them up and then figure out from there what I want to do. This is quite often how I start cards, with just some layers of paper, and then I work my stamps and embellishments on top of that. So this is a little bit like me going back to basics. So I'm just going through all the rest of my scraps to see if I want to add any other paper layers onto this, and I decide that I really don't, but I do bring out some white, just a scrap of white cardstock from my stash to see maybe I can put a sentiment on that. But for now, I'm going to stamp right onto the pattern papers that I have there. And I have the largest butterfly, and I'm terribly indecisive about what color I want to stamp it and where I want to stamp it. So I eventually make a decision and go with pink and tilt it just a little bit so it's not quite straight up and down. And then I also stamp one of the trails in pink as well. And it shows up quite well actually against the card. So now I have a sentiment that I want to stamp on there, and I decide to do that in blue so it stands out a little bit better. And it's a very simple card, but you know, the cards don't have to always be fancy. But it does need something a little bit extra. So I grab my turquoise Nuevo drops, and it sort of spurts out a little bit. So I was going to wipe it with a wet wipe, and I realized that I would probably end up wiping some of the ink. So I just sort of scraped it away with my bone folder, and then got back to putting my drops on there. And there you go, there's the finished card. Okay guys, that is 10 cards. If you saw my first part of the video, then thank you very much. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye.